Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more great aircraft documentaries and model build videos. The Douglas SPD Dauntless is a World War II American naval scout plane and dive bomber that was manufactured by Douglas Aircraft from 1940 to 1944. The SPD Douglas was the United States Navy's main carrier-based scout dive bomber from mid-1940 to mid-1944. The SPD was also flown by the United States Marine Corps, both from land air bases and aircraft carriers. The SPD is best remembered as the bomber that delivered the fatal blows to the Japanese carriers at the Battle of Midway in June 1942. The type earned its nickname Slow But Deadly from its SPD initials during this period. During its combat service, the SPD proved to be an effective naval scout plane and dive bomber. It possessed long range, good handling characteristics, maneuverability, potent bomb load, great diving characteristics from the perforated dive brakes. By the middle months of 1943, the bomber was considered by pilots to be too vulnerable for service owing to its armament and slow speed, and was regulated to non-combat roles. One land-based variant of the SPD, omitting the arrestor hook, was built for the US Army Air Forces as the A-24 Banshee. US Navy and Marine Corps SPDs saw their first action at Pearl Harbor, when most of the Marine Corps SPDs of Marine Scout Bombing Squadron 232 were destroyed on the ground at Ewa Mooring Mass Field. Most US Navy SPDs flew from their aircraft carriers, which did not operate in close cooperation with the rest of the fleet. Most Navy SPDs at Pearl Harbor, like their Marine Corps counterparts, were destroyed on the ground. On the 10th of December 1941, SPDs from USS Enterprise sank the Japanese submarine I-70. From February to March 1942, SPDs from the carriers USS Lexington, Yorktown and Enterprise took part in various raids on Japanese installations in the Gilbert Islands, the Marshall Islands, New Guinea, Rabaul, Wake Island and Marcus Island. The first major use of the SPD in combat was at the Battle of the Coral Sea, where SPDs and TBD Devastators sank the Japanese light aircraft carrier Shoho and damaged the Japanese fleet carrier Shokaku. SPDs were also used for anti-torpedo combat air patrols, and these scored several victories against Japanese aircraft that were trying to attack the Lexington and Yorktown. Their relatively heavy gun armament, with two forward-firing M2 Browning machine guns and either one or two rear flexible-mounted ANM2 machine guns, were effective against the lightly built Japanese fighters, and many pilots and gunners took aggressive attitudes to the fighters that attacked them. SPD pilot Stanley Swede Tassa was attacked by three Zero fighters. He shot down two of them and cut off the wing of the third in a head-on pass with his wingtip. The SPD's most important contribution to the American war effort came during the Battle of Midway in early June 1942. Four squadrons of Navy SPD dive bombers attacked and sank or fatally damaged all four Japanese fleet carriers present, disabling three of them in the span of just 6 minutes: Akagi, Kaga, Sarayo, and later in the day, Hirayo. They also caught two straggling heavy cruisers of the Midway bombardment group of four, heavily damaging them, with Makuma eventually sinking. At the Battle of Midway, Marine Corps SPDs were not as effective. One squadron, VMSB 241, flying from Midway Atoll, was not trained in the techniques of dive bombing with their new Dauntless, having just partially converted from the SB-2U Vindicator. Its pilots resorted to the slower but easier glide bombing technique. This led to many of the SPDs being shot down during their glide, although one survivor from these attacks is now on display at the National Naval Aviation Museum and is the last surviving aircraft to have flown in the battle. The carrier-borne squadrons were effective, especially when they were escorted by Grumman F-4F Wildcats. The success of dive bombing resulted from one important circumstance. Unlike American squadrons that attacked shortly before one at a time, allowing defending Japanese Zero fighters to concentrate on each squadron to shoot them down or drive them away from the carriers, 3 squadrons totaling 47 SBDs, VS-6, VB-6 and VB-3, 1 squadron of 12 TBD torpedo aircraft VT-3 and 6 F-4F fighters from VF-3 all arrived simultaneously, with 2 of the SBD squadrons VS-6 and VB-6 arriving from a different direction from other squadrons. Without central fighter direction, the approximately 40 Zeros concentrated on the TBDs, with some fighting the F-4Fs covering the TBDs, leaving the SBDs unhindered by fighter opposition in their approach and attack, although most of the TBDs were shot down. SBDs played a major role in the Guadalcanal campaign, operating off both American carriers from Henderson Field on Guadalcanal. SBDs proved lethal to Japanese shipping that failed to clear New Georgia Sound by daylight. Losses inflicted by the carrier Ryujo sank near the Solomon Islands on the 25th of August. 3 other Japanese carriers were damaged during the 6-month campaign. SBDs sank a cruiser and 9 transports during the naval battle of Guadalcanal. In the Atlantic Ocean, the SBD saw action during Operation Torch, the Allied landings in North Africa in November 1942. The SBDs flew from USS Ranger and 2 escort carriers. 11 months later, during Operation Leader, the SBDs saw their European debut when aircraft from Ranger attacked Nazi Germany's shipping around Bodo, Norway. By 1944, the US Navy began replacing the SBD with the more powerful SB-2C Helldiver. During the Battle of the Philippine Sea in June 1944, a long-range twilight strike was made against the retreating Japanese fleet, or beyond the limit of the combat radius of the aircraft. The force had about 20 minutes of daylight over their targets before attempting the long return in the dark. Of the 215 aircraft, only 115 made it back. 20 were lost to enemy action in the attack, and 80 were lost as one by one they expended their fuel and had to ditch into the sea. In the attack were 20 SBDs, all of which made it back to the carriers. The Battle of the Philippine Sea was the last major engagement of the carrier-borne SBDs. Marine squadrons continued to fly SBDs until the end of the war. Although the Curtiss Helldiver had a more powerful engine, a higher maximum speed, and could carry nearly 1,000 pounds more in bomb load, many of the Helldiver bomber pilots preferred the SBD, which was lighter and had better low-speed handling characteristics critical for carrier landings. The Dauntless was one of the most important aircraft in the Pacific War, sinking more enemy shipping in the Pacific than any other Allied bomber. Barrett Tillman, in his book on the Dauntless, claims that it has a plus score against enemy aircraft, meaning it was credited with more victories over enemy planes than losses from enemy action. This is considered to be a rare event for a nominal bomber. A total of 5,936 SBDs were produced during the war. The last SBD rolled off the assembly lines at the Douglas Aircraft Plant in California on the 21st of July 1944. The Navy placed emphasis on the heavier, faster and longer ranged SB-2C. From Pearl Harbor to April 1944, SBDs had flown 1,189,473 operational hours, with 25% of all operational hours flown off aircraft carriers being in SBDs. Its battle record shows that in addition to 6 Japanese carriers, 14 enemy cruisers have been sunk, along with 6 destroyers, 15 transport or cargo ships, and scores of various lesser craft. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and until next time. Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more great aircraft documentaries and model build videos. Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more great aircraft documentaries and model build videos. The Supermarine Spitfire is a British single-seat fighter aircraft used by the Royal Air Force and other Allied countries before, during and after World War II. It was the only British fighter produced continuously throughout the war. The Spitfire remains popular among enthusiasts. Around 70 remain airworthy, and many more are static exhibits in aviation museums throughout the world. The Spitfire was designed as a short-range, high-performance interceptor aircraft by R.J. Mitchell. Special, chief designer at Supermarine Aviation Works, which operated as a subsidiary of Vickers Armstrong from 1928. Mitchell developed the Spitfire's distinctive elliptical wing designed by Beverly Shenstone with an innovative sunken rivet to have the thinnest possible cross-section, achieving a potential top speed greater than that of several contemporary fighter aircraft, including the Hawker Hurricane. Mitchell continued to refine the design until his death in 1937, whereupon his colleague Joseph Smith took over as chief designer. Smith oversaw the Spitfire's development through many variants from the Mark I to the Rolls-Royce Griffon engine Mark 24, using several wing configurations and guns. The original airframe was designed to be powered by a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine producing 1,030 horsepower. It was strong enough and adaptable enough to use increasingly powerful Merlins and in later Marks Rolls-Royce Griffon engines, producing up to 2,340 horsepower. As a result, the Spitfire's performance and capabilities improved over the course of its service life. During the Battle of Britain from July to October 1940, the more numerous Hurricane flew more sorties, resisting the Luftwaffe, but the Spitfire captured the public's imagination as the main RAF fighter, in part because the Spitfire was generally a better fighter aircraft than the Hurricane. Spitfire units had a lower attrition rate and a higher victory to loss ratio than Hurricanes, most likely due to the Spitfire's higher performance. During the battle, Spitfires generally engaged with Luftwaffe fighters, mainly Messerschmitt Bf 109E series aircraft, which were a close match for them. After the Battle of Britain, the Spitfire superseded the Hurricane as the principal aircraft of RAF Fighter Command, and it was used in the European, Mediterranean, Pacific and Southeast Asian theatres. Much loved by its pilots, the Spitfire operated in several roles, including interceptor, photo reconnaissance, fighter bomber and trainer, and it continued to do so until the 1950s. The Seafire was an aircraft carrier-based adaptation of the Spitfire, used in the Fleet Air Arm from 1942 until the mid-1950s. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and until next time. Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more great aircraft documentaries and model build videos. Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more great aircraft documentaries and model build videos. The Junkers Ju-188 was a German Luftwaffe high-performance medium bomber built during World War II, the planned follow-up to the Ju-88 with better performance and payload. It was produced only in limited numbers due both to the presence of improved versions of the Ju-88 as well as the increasingly effective Allied strategic bombing campaign against German industry and the resulting focus on fighter production. In 1936, Junkers submitted proposals for the Ju-85 and Ju-88 into competition for the new standardized Luftwaffe high-speed tactical bomber known as the Schnell bomber. The two designs were almost identical, differing only in that the Ju-85 used a twin rudder and the Ju-88 a single fin. The Ju-188 was designed to be fitted with either the 1,730 horsepower UMO 213A or 680 horsepower BMW 801 G2 engines without any changes to the airframe, with the exclusion of the redesign for UMO powered examples of the annular radiators from their UMO 211 layout for the A series to better match the more powerful 213's cooling needs, while using similar broad chord 3-blade propellers as the A series did. It was intended that both would be known as A models, but naming was later changed. The Ju-188A model powered by the 213 and the Ju-188E by the 801. In 1943 it was planned to upgrade all versions with even more wing area and a pressurized cockpit for high altitude work. A single basic airframe will be offered in 3 versions: the Ju-188J heavy fighter, Ju-188K bomber and Ju-188L reconnaissance version. As with the streamlined Ju-88 P-48S. All three late model Ju-188 designs did away with the Bola gondola, leading to a cleaner nose profile, and the bomber and reconnaissance versions mounted their loads in a long pannier under the central fuselage instead of the deeper fuselage of the G and H models. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and until next time. Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more great aircraft documentaries and model build videos. Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more great aircraft documentaries and model build videos. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt is a World War II era fighter aircraft produced by the American company Republic Aviation from 1941 to 1945. It was a successful high-altitude fighter, and it also served as the foremost American fighter bomber in the ground attack role. Its primary armament was 850 caliber machine guns, and it could carry 5-inch rockets or a bomb load of 2,500 pounds. When fully loaded, the P-47 weighed up to 8 tons, making it one of the heaviest fighters of the war. The Thunderbolt was effective as a short to medium range escort fighter in high altitude air-to-air combat and ground attack in both the European and Pacific theaters. The P-47 was designed around the powerful Pratt & Whitney R2800 double Wasp 18-cylinder radial engine, which also powered two US Navy and US Marine Corps fighters, the Grumman F-6F Hellcat and the Volt F-4U Corsair. An advanced turbo supercharger system ensured the aircraft's eventual dominance at high altitude, while also influencing its size and design. P-47 was one of the main US AAF fighters of World War II. It also served with other Allied air forces, including those of France, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union, as well as Allied Mexican and Brazilian squadrons. The armoured cockpit was relatively roomy and comfortable, and the bubble canopy introduced on the P-47D offered good visibility. Nicknamed the Jug owing to its appearance if stood on its nose, the P-47 was noted for its firepower and its ability to resist battle damage and remain airworthy. A present-day US ground attack aircraft, the Fairchild Republic A-10 Thunderbolt II, takes its name from the P-47. By the end of 1942, the P-47Cs were sent to England for combat operations. The initial Thunderbolt flyers, the 56th Fighter Group, were sent overseas to join the 8th Air Force. As the P-47 Thunderbolt worked up to operational status, it gained a nickname, Jug, because of its profile was similar to that of a common milk jug of the time. Two fighter groups already stationed in England began introducing the Jugs in January 1943. The Spitfire Flying 4th Fighter Group, a unit built around a core of experienced American pilots who had flown in the RAF Eagle squadrons prior to the US entry in the war, and the 78th Fighter Group, formerly flying P-38 Lightnings. Beginning in January 1943, Thunderbolt fighters were sent to the Joint Army Air Force's civilian Millville Airport in Millville, New Jersey, to train civilian and military pilots. The first P-47 combat mission took place on the 10th of March 1943, when the 4th Fighter Group took their aircraft on a fighter sweep over France. The mission was a failure due to radio malfunctions. All P-47s were refitted with British radios, and missions resumed on the 8th of April. The first P-47 air combat took place on the 15th of April, with Major John Blacksley of the 4th Fighter Group scoring the Thunderbolt's first victory against a Focke-Wulf FW-190. By mid-1943, the Jug was also in service with the 12th Air Force in Italy, and against the Japanese in the Pacific with the 348th Fighter Group, flying missions out of Port Moresby, New Guinea. By 1944, the Thunderbolt was in combat with the USAAF in all its operational theatres except Alaska. Luftwaffe Heinz Barr said that the P-47 could absorb an astounding amount of lead from shooting at it and had to be handled very carefully. Although the North American P-51 Mustang replaced the P-47 in the long-range escort role in Europe, the Thunderbolt still ended the war with an aerial kill ratio of 4 to 6 to 1 in over 746,000 sorties of all types, at the cost of 3,499 P-47s to all causes in combat. By the end of the war, the 56th Fighter Group was the only 28th Air Force unit still flying the P-47 by preference instead of the P-51. The unit claimed 677.5 air victories and 311 ground kills at the cost of 128 aircraft. Lieutenant Colonel Francis S. Gabreski scored 28 victories. Captain Robert S. Johnson scored 27, with one unconfirmed probable kill, leading to some giving his tally as 28. And the 56th Fighter Group commanding officer, Colonel Hubert Zemk, scored 17.75 kills, despite being the sole remaining P-47 group in the 8th Air Force. The 56th Fighter Group remained its top scoring group in aerial victories throughout the war. With increases in fuel capacity as the type was refined, the range of escort missions over Europe steadily increased until the P-47 was able to accompany bombers in raids all the way into Germany. On the way back from the raids, pilots shot up ground targets of opportunity and also used belly shackles to carry bombs on short-range missions, which led to the realization that the P-47 could perform a dual function on escort missions as a fighter bomber. Even with its complicated turbo supercharger system, its sturdy airframe and tough radial engine could absorb significant damage and still return home. The P-47 gradually became the US AAF's primary fighter bomber. By late 1943, early versions of the P-47D carried 500-pound bombs on their undersides. Mid-production versions of the P-47D could carry 1,000-pound bombs and M8 4.5-inch rockets under their wings, or from the last version of the P-47D in 1944, 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rockets. D-Day until VE Day, Thunderbolt pilots claimed to have destroyed 86,000 railway cars, 9,000 locomotive engines, 6,000 armoured fighting vehicles, and 68,000 trucks. During Operation Cobra in the vicinity of Ronsi, P-47 Thunderbolts of the 405th Fighter Group destroyed a German column of 122 tanks, 259 other vehicles, and 11 artillery pieces. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and until next time. Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more great aircraft documentaries and model build videos. Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more great aircraft documentaries and model build videos. The North American Aviation P-51 Mustang is an American long-range single-seat fighter and fighter bomber used during World War II and the Korean War, among other conflicts. The Mustang was designed in 1940 by a team headed by James H. Kindleberger of North American Aviation in response to a requirement of the British Purchasing Commission. The Commission approached the NAA to build Curtiss P-40 fighters under license for the Royal Air Force, rather than build an old design from another company. NAA proposed a design and production of a more modern fighter. The prototype NA-73X airframe was completed on the 9th of September 1940, 102 days after contract signing, achieving its first flight on the 26th of October. The Mustang was designed to use the Allison V1710 engine without an export-sensitive turbo supercharger or a multi-stage supercharger, resulting in limited high-altitude performance. The aircraft was first flown operationally and very successfully by the RAF and as a tactical reconnaissance aircraft and fighter bomber. In mid-1942, a development project known as the Rolls-Royce Mustang 10 replaced the Allison engine with a Rolls-Royce Merlin 65 two-stage intercooled supercharged engine. During testing at Rolls-Royce's airfield at Hucknall in England, it was clear the engine dramatically improved the aircraft's performance at altitudes above 15,000 feet without sacrificing range. Following receipt of the test results and further flights by a number of US AAF pilots, the results were so positive that North American began work on converting several aircraft developing into the P-51BC, the Mustang Mark III model, which became the first long-range fighter to be able to compete with the Luftwaffe's fighters. The definitive version, the P-51D, was powered by the Packard V16507, a license-built version of the two-speed, two-stage supercharged Merlin 66, and was armed with 6 50 caliber AN M2 Browning machine guns. From late 1943, P-51Bs and P-51Cs, supplemented by P-51Ds from mid-1944, were used by the USAAF's 8th Air Force to escort bombers in raids over Germany, while the RAF's 2nd Tactical Air Force and the USAAF's 9th Air Force used the Merlin-powered Mustangs as fighter bombers, roles in which the Mustang helped ensure Allied air superiority in 1944. The P-51 was also used by Allied air forces in the North African, Mediterranean, Italian and Pacific theatres. During World War II, Mustang pilots claimed to have destroyed 4,950 enemy aircraft. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and until next time. Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more great aircraft documentaries and model build videos. Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more great aircraft documentaries and model build videos. The Gloucester Gladiator is a British biplane fighter. It was used by the Royal Air Force and the Fleet Air Arm as the Sea Gladiator variant, and was exported to a number of other air forces during the late 1930s. Developed privately as the Gloucester SS-37, it was the RAF's last biplane fighter aircraft and was rendered obsolete by newer monoplane designs, even as it was being introduced. Though often pitted against more advanced fighters during the early days of the Second World War, it acquitted itself reasonably well in combat. The Gladiator saw action in almost all theatres during the Second World War, with a large number of air forces, some of them on the Axis side. The RAF used it in France, Norway, Greece, the defence of Malta, the Middle East, and the brief Anglo-Iraqi War, during which the Royal Iraqi Air Force was similarly equipped. Other countries deploying the Gladiator included China against Japan, beginning in 1938, Finland, along with Swedish volunteers, against the Soviet Union in the Winter War and the Continuation War. Sweden as a neutral non-combatant, although Swedish volunteers fought for Finland against the USSR and Norway, Belgium and Greece resisting Axis invasion of their respective lands. South African pilot Marmaduke Patel was the top Gladiator ace with 15 victories with the type. In February 1937, No. 72 Squadron, based at Tangmere, became the first squadron to be equipped with the Gladiator. No. 72 operated the type until April 1939, longer than any other home-based frontline unit. Between March and April 1937, No. 3 Squadron at Kenley also received Gladiators from the remainder of the first production batch, replacing their obsolete Bristol Bulldogs. Initial service with the type proved the Vickers guns to be problematical. The Gladiator was quickly armed with 303 Browning machine guns, which were substantially more popular, leading to the other guns often only being resorted to if deemed necessary. On the 27th of March 1937, No. 54 Squadron at Hornchurch became the first unit to receive Browning armed Gladiators. By September 1937, all 8 Gladiator squadrons had achieved operational status and had formed the spearhead of London's air defences. Difficulties with introducing the type had been experienced. Although the Gladiator was typically well liked by pilots, the accident rate during operational training on the type was so high that a small replacement batch of 28 Gladiator Mark IIs were hurriedly produced. Most accidents were caused by pilots being caught out by the fighter's increased wing loading, and many aviators had little experience in landing aircraft with such a wide flap area. The aircraft had a tendency to stall more abruptly, frequently by dropping a wing while doing so. The Gladiator very easily entered a flat spin, and great skill was needed to recover it. The first use of RAF Gladiators on active service was during the 1936 to 1939 Arab Revolt in Palestine. From September to December 1938, 33 Squadron flew RAF Gladiators strafing missions in support of British Mandate security forces. These were often in mountainous areas and the aircraft came under substantial rifle fire. 3 aircraft were destroyed and 2 pilots killed in these operations. During 1938, the RAF had begun to receive its first deliveries of the Hurricane and Spitfire monoplanes. An emphasis was soon placed on quickly re-equipping half of the Gladiator squadrons with either of these monoplane types. By the outbreak of the Second World War, the Gladiator had largely been replaced by the Hurricane and Spitfire in frontline RAF service. The introduction of these aircraft had been eased by the presence of the Gladiator squadrons that had operated Gladiators prior to converting to the monoplane types, experienced a noticeably improved accident record than those who converted from older types such as the Gauntlet. Experiences such as operating the Gladiator's landing flaps and familiarization with its sliding hood have been attributed to having favorably impacted pilot conversion. Although by 1941 all Gladiators had been withdrawn from frontline duties, defending the British Isles, a need to defend Britain's trade routes throughout the overseas territories of the British Empire had been recognised. So the RAF redeployed many of its Gladiators to the Middle East to defend the theatre and the crucial Suez Canal. The Gladiator saw considerable action during the early stages of the war, including participating in the action in the French and Norwegian campaigns. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and until next time. Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more great aircraft documentaries and model build videos. Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more great aircraft documentaries and model build videos. The Hawker Hurricane is a British single-seat fighter aircraft of the 1930s and 40s, which was designed and predominantly built by Hawker Aircraft Limited for service with the Royal Air Force. It was overshadowed in the public consciousness by the Supermarine Spitfire during the Battle of Britain in 1940, but the Hurricane inflicted 60% of the losses sustained by the Luftwaffe in the campaign and fought in all the major theatres of the Second World War. The Hurricane originated from discussions between RAF officials and aircraft designer Sir Sidney Cam about a proposed monoplane derivative of the Hawker Fury biplane in the early 1930s. Despite an institutional preference for biplanes and lack of interest by the Air Ministry, Hawker refined its monoplane proposal, incorporating several innovations which became critical to wartime fighter aircraft, including retractable landing gear and the more powerful Rolls-Royce Merlin engine. The Air Ministries ordered Hawker's Interceptor monoplane in late 1934 and the prototype Hurricane K5083 performed its maiden flight on the 6th of November 1935. The Hurricane went into production for the Air Ministry in June 1936 and entered squadron service in December 1937. Its manufacture and maintenance were eased by using conventional construction methods so that squadrons could perform many major repairs without external support. The plane was rapidly procured prior to the outbreak of the Second World War. In September 1939, the RAF had 18 Hurricane-equipped squadrons in service. It was relied upon to defend against German aircraft operated by the Luftwaffe, including dogfighting with Messerschmitt Bf-109s in multiple theatres of action. The Hurricane was developed through several versions: bomber interceptors, fighter bombers and ground support aircraft, as well as fighters. Versions designed for the Royal Navy, known as the Sea Hurricane, had modifications including an arrestor hook near the tail, enabling operation from ships. Some were converted as catapult-launched convoy escorts, By the end of production in July 1944, 14,487 units had been completed in Britain and Canada, with others built in Belgium and Yugoslavia. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and until next time. Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more great aircraft documentaries and model build videos.